This is the 32nd episode of CloudFocus Weekly for the third week of February 2011. This episode is titled Next 10 Years. CloudFocus Weekly is sponsored by Arkus, Cloud Computing Experts. And I'm your host, Jason Atwood. Joining me, co-host, 32nd time in a row, got to change it up a little bit here, is Justin Elsing. Justin, how are you doing?
I prefer co-host extraordinaire.
Not broadcaster?
No.
Okay. So we have an agenda today. Like most days.
We do. Where's it written?
It is... I was going to let it come up more naturally.
Oh.
Let's let it come up more natural. We'll get it in there. Right. You don't have to stuff it in the beginning.
I like to stuff it in the beginning.
And we're moving on. So, you posted a blog post this week.
I did.
On our blog post rotation. I wonder if people can figure that one out. It's basically every third week, one of us writes something. So we're talking about yours. It's basically about 10 years of innovation. And so we'll talk about that and
waxing philosophical
and what that means. And then a little news out of Google. This is sort of in response. I guess it's a Google and Apple story, but about OnePass, because Google is now allowing for subscription to content, which Apple is also allowing on the iPad now through their API. So we'll talk about how that affects and how they might be affecting each other. And maybe the state of cloud data. And we'll talk about upcoming events, including CloudForce 2011 here in New York City, which is a Salesforce event. And then we have a case study we posted and talk something about that.
Since this podcast is sponsored by Arkus, your cloud computing experts, we may as well give Arkus a commercial.
Yeah, I think it is a little bit of a commercial. It's also interesting case study for doing something pretty fascinating on the Force.com platform that I think we should talk about. And then we'll finish up with our CloudFocus app pick of the week. Mine came from this morning. I usually wait. I had 3 or 4 this week. I've forgotten them all, but then I almost tweeted this morning because it was something that I was doing and enjoying, and I thought this is actually great. This is something that I think most apps should be able to do. So we'll talk about that in a second.
Great.
Let's start off with your blog post.
Sure. So it's called 10 Years of Innovation. It was inspired by when Mark Benioff, CEO of Salesforce.com, gets up on stage and gives his keynote speeches, which he will do in a couple weeks at CloudForce. He most often uses a phrase, something along the lines of, in our industry, the technology industry, we always overestimate what we can do in 1 year and underestimate what we can do in 10. And I think I've said this at least 2 or 3 other times on this podcast, if you're a longtime listener, that I love that phrase. I think it holds true. I think it's a phenomenal way to think about the technology industry and the waves of innovation that happen in the industry. So what I did was I sort of tried to look deep inside myself and determine what are some of the top innovations that I really like over the last 10 years and where they started 10 years ago and where they've sort of ended up now and are continuing to move forward on. So one of the things I brought up was HD television, because I think back 10 years ago, in 2001, and I did not have an HD TV. I had a very small TV. It was a tube. I then migrated to a larger tube, a 32-inch tube, which was awesome. It was so big. And now I stare at your computer monitor, which is 24 inches and flat, and I say, wow,
yes,
look at that. That's bigger than my television. And now, I mean, can you imagine watching television not in HD? I mean, can you imagine watching a football game on Sunday not in HD, or a movie, or watching one of these new HBO shows or Showtime shows that are all shot in HD, like Boardwalk Empire or something like that? Can you imagine that just not being the case at this point?
Yeah, it is easy to imagine because I just upgraded to full HD.
Yeah, but you had a flat standard, what was it? Enhanced definition TV. Yes.
But I think it's an interesting point. I'm not. This isn't a podcast about HD, but we can go down a rat hole if you want. While I love HD, there are times when I look at it, I'm like, it's too much. It's too clear. Sports is an example of where HD is absolutely 100% perfect because you want to see every little thing. But when you're looking at shows, TV shows, and especially movies, I find the movies that I watch over cable on HD, so Showtime, HBO, the movies I watch, they're so clear and so kind of, it looks just off. It looks too much.
I disagree.
It looks like a crystal. It doesn't look like the show I want, especially when we watch things like, I'll tell you, we've talked about Netflix a lot. Netflix, does streaming. They actually do streaming HD on the Apple TV. And I was watching The Office, all the series of The Office. And we went from watching it, I think, on the iPad to watching it on Netflix on this new big TV I have. And it's just like you can see every bad detail on everybody's face. So there are certain cases. I have a mode on my TV that allows it to go into like movie mode,
fuzzy mode.
Yeah, and it kind of makes it a little bit less like in your face. Because even movies aren't HD. You go to a movie, it's not HD. It's they have the ratio of pixels isn't in anything. I want to move on to the second though, because one of the things you brought up was the iPhone. And the iPhone innovation.
So my second, I did do 3 of these. The second one was, was titled "I Want Everything Yesterday," which is to say, 10 years ago I did have a cell phone. I moved up from beepers to cell phones, and I thought, wow, this is amazing. Someone could call me, and I can be anywhere, not connected to anything, and this phone will ring. And I'm like, wow, how does that even work, right? Like, that is crazy. This is the future. And fast forward 10 years later, and who would have thought you'd have literally a little mini computer sitting in your pocket that doesn't just ring when someone calls you. That's the least of what you use it for. You can text message, you can tweet, you can communicate in real time, Facebook updates, apps galore. Anything you want to do, for the most part, you can do on this, 3 to 5 inch piece of glass that's sitting in your pocket. And who would have thought, you go from, typing your first text message and using the 2 key for A, B, or C and hitting it, 1, 2, or 3 times.
Oh, yeah.
And moving, I got pretty fast at typing that way, but I mean, now there's not even a key on my phone, and a lot of phones are moving that way. And
you have one button.
I have a button,
yeah,
or 2 buttons, on, off, and the home button, and that's kind of it. Pretty phenomenal that over the course of 10 years, things moved from something really impressive, a cell phone, to what now is full-featured, mobile, fully connected to the internet, amazing devices.
And if you think about where the next 10 years is going, you brought up that you and I both use our iPhones as our alarm clock, which got us in a bug on January 1st because there was a bug in the iOS. But yeah, it does. It's something that we didn't have at one point, and now cannot imagine not having. Not only not having in life, I'm air quoting here, but not having on us
ever.
Like, where is your iPhone? Yours is within 2 feet of you, and mine's within 2 feet of me. It's amazing that it doesn't. It's something you don't even go 5 feet away from it because it has every part of your life in it. To think where it's going to go, and there's a couple things that are coming. Clearly, just more content that you want, will be available to it. I think payments. I think the next thing I'd love to get rid of is my wallet. Like, to be honest, I don't want a wallet anymore. It has, I don't want to do companies that give me pieces of paper. I don't want to carry pieces of paper. I don't want credit cards. I want it all in my iPhone, and I want that. So if I lose my iPhone, I go online, I hit destroy, and somewhere in
kill
in East River it goes and just blows up. So I think payments are coming. Obviously, better recognition. Apple bought a company called Siri, or bought a company that made a application called Siri, which does a lot of voice recognition stuff, like find me a Thai restaurant close to me that's open, and it sort of puts it all together for you. I think payments, more content, and better sort of interface. So we'll get further and further away from the typing, and more into interacting with it in a voice response system.
And even to think, like, 15 years ago, how did you even make plans? Like how did you know where to meet somebody? It's like, now it's like, I'll pull out my phone and say, I'm on the opposite corner of you. I can see you. Like, meet me at the movies at 4:30. Like, all right, meet me at the mall. Where in the mall? Like all these things. Like I just can't imagine living like without a cell phone. You get into a car accident 15 years ago. What do you do?
Yeah, GPS is something that I would have said 10 years ago. Why would I ever need that? And now I can't. I don't want a device without it. I'm a little mad that my iPad is Wi-Fi only and doesn't have it instantly in it. Like I want GPS. Alrighty, so good blog post. You can go to blog.arkus Inc. to read that. Read it up. Blog.
Add the .com.
Yeah, .com.
You know.
Well, maybe we bought all the domains.
Yeah,
.org,
whatever.
.com,
Sure.
.info.
Do it.
Next story up is actually Google releases something called OnePass. Now we do talk about Google a lot, but they are sort of one of the biggest cloud providers, and they're getting into the business of allowing for subscription to content. So micropayments and things allowing people to subscribe to sort of protected content has been around for a long time. Wall Street Journal was one of the first websites that sort of made a big play for it. There have been many since. I actually worked at a company that built one that was they call it a walled content where you pay per month to get in and access data. But it's never really gone anywhere, right? There's sort of like free ad content, and then there's a few of them that have gone out there. We talked about The Daily the other day, the iPad application, which is now...
Which, by the way, I never went back to after the first day.
I agree. I go back to it occasionally, but I was actually talking to someone that you have to change your behavior. I never got a paper delivered to my door. I mean, I did many when I was in college. I used to love to read the Wall Street Journal. Yes, that was me. So I got the Wall Street Journal delivered, and I would literally pick it up, go up to the student center, and in the morning, as a business major, I'd read the Wall Street Journal. I thought I was doing my part.
Yeah, you were. Got you pretty far.
Yeah, it did. So... But then since then, I have not gotten a subscription to a newspaper. And what tells you how to read in the morning? Well, you open your door, and there's the Daily News, whatever it is, sitting at your door, right? Read the newspaper. The problem with the Daily is, what's that thing that's going to tell you in the morning to go read it, right? It's not this, if you maybe put your iPad out on the front stoop and said, look, read,
every night, put your iPad out in front of the door.
And if it's still there.
Pray that it doesn't get taken.
Yeah.
And then when you wake up in the morning, it's a surprise. Hey, it's either there or not.
So I think it's one of those things that we have to change our perception of. I mean, I've changed my reading habits. I don't read books anymore. I read everything on the iPad.
But what if it was like a push notification that sort of said, "Hey, the new Daily's here"?
I think they should. They don't do it, but they should. Certainly, that would help because I literally just forget. And when I'm looking at my iPad, or I go downstairs and I'll talk about my app pick of the week that I've sort of enjoyed this morning, I don't think about the Daily. I just don't. I think of the other 7 things that are on my iPad. So, whatever. Anyway, Google's getting the business. Apple's taking 30% of publishers. They're allowing for people to publish subscriptions in iTunes now, or in the iOS now, which is really big. So this allows other people to push out content and have people inside the application subscribe to it. So...
This is like a container app for like a magazine.
Yes.
So Time Magazine could put out an app, and every week you can get the new copy.
Yeah, and you can subscribe to it or unsubscribe to it, and you could pay.
So you have to think about it.
Just like the Daily. And I think this is great because it's getting to replace a lot of these magazines and stuff. I'm not sure the Daily would get me, but if the Wall Street Journal were available on an iPad app that I could get everything, I probably wouldn't read that either. Anyway, Google's now saying we're going to give it away. Same sort of thing. We're doing 10%. We're going to take 10%. Apple's taking 30%. So it's a kind of so it's furthering this fight between Google and Apple that is really heating up. I'll throw in another rumor out there, which is someone let slip that Google's competitor to iTunes is getting close. They are going
meaning a full-on app on the, or is it going to be a cloud thing?
It'll be a cloud-based application for music purchasing, storage, and all that.
And get to it from your Android devices near you.
Of course. And there'll be some app that allows you to do it that they'll put out. Google wants to be in that business. Nothing's going to stop them.
It seems like a crowded business. You got Apple with iTunes, which is pretty dominant in the space. You got Amazon, right? I mean, it seems pretty crowded.
That's 2 people. How's that crowded?
Well,
that makes this office crowded.
No, well, it does. But there's obviously other smaller bit players that are out there that sell content still and allow you to either subscribe to or what have you. But I mean, it almost seems too late to come out with a new service like this, I think.
Well, they just got into books, so they just released their book reader and their online bookstore. They just released their subscription model and their subscription OnePass. They have videos, both in Google Videos and YouTube, so it makes sense to go down the music path because it kind of rounds out what you're offering. I think Google's thing, and this is where I think Google and Apple, if they had a love child, it'd be beautiful. Google never does a lot of, let's make sure these things all work together. Apple almost does it too much. Like, iTunes has everything in it now. Your music, your music, your videos, your podcasts, your TV shows, your books, your Ping, your apps. And in some ways, that's great. But in some ways, it's like, wow, man, this is a big application. I have to go load up.
It is sort of a beast.
It is.
I don't even like to open iTunes.
It's a little scary. Google does the other way. Everything's this little service, right? A link somewhere, and it's a service, and they run independently. Sometimes they make them cross-connect. Sometimes they do a very bad job of making them cross-connect. Like, you're on one app, and you try to flip to another one, and it goes, this app looks nothing like the other.
They don't
app.
always think about the productization of the really neat, cool technology that they've developed. Like, it's almost like they do like R&D projects that then turn into real things, but they don't think about the end user experience the way that an Apple would think about the end user using the product and using all of the products together as sort of an ecosystem of products. Google's like, this is some cool stuff. You can log in with your Google account. Integrated. That's sort of it, right?
And that's it. And if you can, on your two accounts. So, moving on, interesting stuff. Moving on, we have another event, sort of what I like to call mini Dreamforce.
I love CloudForce.
CloudForce is another Salesforce event. Anybody listens to is a Salesforce fanboy out there should know that it's March 3rd, 2011.
Well, this is the New York one.
This is the New York one.
So anyone in New York.
That's true. Interesting this year, they're going bigger, because last year it was held at a hotel, the Pierre?
It's been at the Pierre for the last 3 or 4 years.
Right.
Where they've held CloudForces as well as like vertical. I think they had like a financial service specific event, and they've done them at. I think they did one at They've done them at the Pierre, and they've done them at the Sheraton in Midtown, and I think it was wherever 52nd Street or whatever. So they've done it at those two hotels. This year they're moving to the convention center.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting.
Jacob Javits.
So it'll definitely have more of a feel of Dreamforce because it'll be in a convention center, not in a little hotel
big hall,
right?
I mean, those things are pretty big.
And of course they got Marky Mark's gonna get up and do his thing. They have Bob Beauchamp from BMC Software. He spoke at Dreamforce, didn't he? Interesting new one though is Luc Lemoux. I don't know how to spell his name. Poor guy. The CEO of Seismic, which makes Seismic Desktop, which makes Seismic Desktop that integrates with Cheddar. So my guess is that's what that's going to talk about. I never find that these have any new information in them.
No, they're usually for hey, we're coming to your town because Dreamforce is in San Francisco and you couldn't fly out, so we're going to bring it to you kind of thing. I know a couple of our clients who were not able to go out to Dreamforce, but are here in New York that are going to CloudForce. We will go. We will enjoy it, and we'll talk about it when afterwards. Again, it's not sort of a prediction thing because they generally don't. They're not going to announce anything new. There's tracks. There's a reception. Yep. There's drinks afterwards. They'll go and they'll do basically a recap of stuff. They'll probably recap a lot of what's in spring, right? They'll talk a lot of it about all the spring enhancements. Hopefully they'll give us some clearer understanding of all the things that were announced at Dreamforce. I haven't really seen too many of them yet. So hopefully they'll give you a little more. Some of this is coming, like database.com is coming. Oh, like that, or even all the enhancements that were announced for the platform and for the partners and all that other stuff. I'd like to maybe they have a better idea of, all right, we've announced this stuff. Now it's 3 months later, let's talk about when you might start to see it. Excellent. So want to push on to our last topic before we get to our CloudFocus app pick of the week, which is a case study that we published. Yes. We time and time again, if we do something what we feel is relatively cool and useful to others to let them know about the platform or something we've done,
publish a case study. And so this case study we published up on the website and has to do with Success Charter. Why don't you give us a little overview of what it was and what we did and why it was important?
So the Success Charter Network in Harlem, New York, is a charter school network that has 8 schools right now that is going to grow to about 40 by the end of this decade. So they need the ability to kind of scale out their operations, and their human resources department was running on some old systems, if there were systems. Otherwise, you could consider Excel and Word the systems that they were running on. So they came to us and had said, what could we do on the Force.com platform to sort of build out a full-featured human resource information system. So we thought, wow, that's an interesting use of the platform. So we took sort of all the bits and pieces that go into a human resource information system from essentially their specifications. I mean, it was built sort of, this is what we want. Custom, Don't give us a packaged HRIS, give us what we want. So, we capture personal information, emergency contact information, social security numbers, things like that. Benefits information with yearly enrollments and allotments, compensation data, a full performance management application suite kind of built in with different assessment points during the year by management of their employees. We track resumes and professional experience and skills through professional development. Banking information, onboarding checklists to sort of align the human resources, IT and finance departments, paid time off, visual org chart using the Google API to sort of visualize every employee within the organization with drill downs by department, etc., and integrated with their recruiting platform, which was iSIMS, using Boomi to sort of integrate when
Delmi
when someone gets hired, it pulls it into the application. So a pretty decent sized project to build out a full HRIS that is being used by about 400 to 500 employees right now, with all the fine-grained permissions and profiling that you would anticipate would need to be included in a human resource system.
And they're using, just as sort of the platform play here, is they're using Salesforce.com EE or Nonprofit Edition, Enterprise Edition, and then they're using, on top of that, they're using Customer Portal.
Right.
Okay. So moving on to other things. Anyway, interesting stuff. If you want to hear about that, we'd be more than happy to talk about it. Let's go to our CloudFocus app pick of the week.
Let's.
Go for yours first.
I always go first. All right. So I was playing around in Gmail and saw that there's...
Wait a second. You're not going to pick a Salesforce App Exchange package?
No.
Not a Force.com Labs app. They put out like 7 new apps last week. They updated.
I saw all the apps.
You installed 2 of them.
I saw all the apps. I saw a bunch of other apps. I was gonna pick one.
Action Plans
was in
3,
no,
Twitter 3.
Didn't
call for you?
No.
All right.
There's actually not made by Salesforce that I was gonna pick, but I'm gonna wait for that one. Nice. To actually use it and see how great it is. So this app is for Gmail. It's called Boomerang.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, I mean it's not. I don't think it's like brand new, spanking new, but it's an interesting concept that sort of allows you to, when you get an email in, sort of say, I don't care about that right now. Sort of send it back to me in a day or like 4 days or whenever I need to pay attention to that. Like, instead of flagging, starring, smart foldering, tagging, it sort of allows you to say, I don't care about that right now, so bring it back into my inbox in 3 days, right? Like, I got my bill pay statement from my bank, and I don't need to pay it for 2 weeks. So I can just say, just bring this back to my attention in 2 weeks, and it'll sort of disappear and come back to you in 2 weeks. It's
very not GTD, but okay.
Well, it sort of is GTD without doing the flagging and the starring. It's saying, I don't need to see this for 2 weeks, so bring it back to me in 2 weeks, right? It's a similar concept.
Yeah, I guess. Sort of.
So it's sort of a plugin for Gmail. It allows you to use, you can install it as a plugin for Firefox and Chrome, and allows you to also schedule sends. So you can say, I don't want to send this right now. I'll send it in a few days. So send it, at a specific time, or in 1 hour, or in 5 hours, or something like that. Can also remind you if you don't hear back from somebody. So if somebody hasn't replied to something that you've sent, it can sort of pop that in your face as well.
That's nice.
I thought it was an interesting little productivity plugin for Google, or for Gmail. So their pricing, as I know you would ask.
What's their pricing?
It's one of those fun little open sourcey type of things where they suggest that you donate whatever you feel is fair.
Oh, I like those.
So you can, you can buy a subscription, and the subscription is for 1 year, and you can sort of say what you feel. Right? You can be a Boomerang fan for $12, or you can be a can't get enough of Boomerang for $120. And there's stages in the middle, right? There's Boomerang fan, Boomerang friend, Boomerang supporter, Boomerang zealot. I don't think the service changes whether you're a fan or a can't get enough of Boomerang person, but it's like a donation to allow them to continue to develop.
Kind of reminds me of the Kickstarter. I don't know if we've talked about Kickstarter a lot, but basically, yes, they have different levels, and it allows you to pick a level. It's a very good pricing scheme, which is that people like to have different levels because, and they figured out that most people go to like the second to the top level. They don't want to go to the top, they go to the second to the top, so you make 4 levels, and you make the second to the top the one that you make the most profit on. Because people are like, I don't want to go to the bottom level because that's cheap, and then I don't want to go to the top because that's crazy, although some people will. So then, but $1 a month is not a bad thing. I mean, it seems like a little tiny feature, so I wouldn't.
I honestly don't think you have to pay for it.
Okay, well then there you go. So it's called Boomerang.
It's called Boomerang for Gmail.
Yep. Excellent. So mine is, I had a couple others. Going down my path, I was going to pick a Mac app. I decided not to. I was going to pick.
This is CloudFocus.
Yes, I was going to pick something else. This is cloudy, sort of. So this is TED.
Ooh, I like TED.
Yes, TED. Is a conference not even every year, it's now all the time in different countries, and it basically gets together a bunch of speakers who have a limited amount of time. It's always like 10 or 15 minutes.
Yeah, they're short usually.
Yeah, very short, to get up and talk about interesting ideas. I think they call it ideas, not sharing ideas, or sharing ideas that matter, or something like that.
Dreamforce sort of tried to copy it a little bit this year with the Unusual Thinkers track.
Sort of like that. So they get some really powerful people. I mean, the big story always is Al Gore went and presented his presentation about the environment there, and the people who go there spend a lot of money. I think it's like $3,000 to $4,000 for a ticket to go to TED. So it's not cheap. But you get these scientists, you get writers, you get bloggers, you get actors to come in, and they do these presentations up there. So a while ago, they put them on the line. They put them as podcasts, which I was loving the podcasts, right? But the problem with podcasts is it's hierarchical, and you can only go and say, okay, I want this one. They'll download, and basically doesn't let you view or zoom around to the different types or follow tags or anything like that. So they put out an iPad app. It's TED by TED Conferences for the iPad. And the beauty of this is that it allows you to go in and view all these things, right? And that's cool. And you can view different tags, and it'll tell you how long it is, what it's been, if it's fun. Apparently also available on the iPhone.
Because I have it.
As you pull out your iPhone app and show it to me. But the feature that I didn't know existed, and I've watched a couple on, and I think that's cool. The feature I didn't know existed until maybe it just came out, maybe not. Maybe it was there all along, which is you can save them. So they're all online videos and they stream to you, but you can hit save to save videos and then watch them offline. And that's And that's what makes this a pick of the week, is because my gym doesn't have Wi-Fi, but I went the other day and I went save, and in the gym this morning I went through and watched 4 different presentations.
Or if you're on the subway or something.
So anywhere offline. Worked great. You can actually, a nice feature is you can hit play all and it'll play them in order down.
I like that.
Really great. Again, is something that I wish more iPad and iPhone and Android apps would do, which was allow for offline. You talked about your ESPN app the other day,
which I want to give an update on.
Okay.
They updated the app.
Yeah.
So it's now like version 3.0.
Yeah.
And they eliminated what I liked about it, which was now it's full streaming. It used to be play in background and it would hop you out into like Safari where it would start downloading ahead.
Right.
And, you can hop in the subway and still have it because it's downloaded ahead. Now it's full. They were like, enhancement, background play. Great, it plays in the background natively, but it doesn't download ahead. So you go into the subway and it's gone.
And the exact reason I said, the reason I said the thing that I didn't like about it, and the reason it doesn't pull me, that podcast pulled me, was that you can't get it offline. You said, well, you can download in advance, and then I proved to you that if you crashed your browser, then it would go away. You didn't like that. So
you crashed my browser. There was no reason to crash my browser.
To prove my point. So then this is exactly what that should have. Any app that has audio.
Any app should be like, put this, download.
Right. And if we were to ever make an Arkus CloudFocus podcast app, we would have to put this feature in there.
Absolutely.
Which you would download it and then you could listen to it anytime.
I wonder how many people would download that app.
Millions.
It would have our Twitter feeds in it.
It could be very good. Have profiles, pictures of us. Could be awesome. Anyway.
The pictures of both of us with our arms around each other.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Thumbs up.
All right. That's a quick... it's free. Free is good. It's sponsored by Rolex. They have little ads at the end. You can skip those too. So I do. I mean, once you see an ad for Rolex, how many times do you need to see it?
I already have 6 Rolex, so I don't need another
The one that I watched a couple this morning, but the one that I want to sort of throw out there is Adam Savage, who's on the Mythbusters show. He did a talk on the dodo bird. And basically,
did he mention Oxford University?
He did not. He talked about the dodo bird and how he spent 6 months and built himself a replica skeleton of a dodo bird found from hundreds of pictures and things he could find on the internet, and he built it himself. Then he went and did the Maltese falcon. Like, just obsessive stuff, but very cool. And like, he details how he did it and why. And then, anyway, there's some really good ones. There's another one about personal robots and like where it's going in the future. And they go back. I watched one from 2004.
Yeah, and I've watched like a Malcolm Gladwell.
Yeah,
talk about spaghetti sauce from whenever that was.
So the nice one about the 2004 that he was talking about what was going to happen in the future, and of course, like, it's 2004. It's now 2011. You could actually say, "Oh yeah, that thing didn't happen or did happen." I want to make one other point. I forgot to bring it up. We were talking about 10 years of innovation and talking about TED. One of our favorite books.
You're holding up a book as if you're on video.
I literally am. One of our favorite books is called...
Are you here promoting a book?
I am. My book that I just published, called The Big Switch by Not Me, by Nicholas Carr. Well, it reminded me because you said, because we talked about CloudFocus. Sorry, not CloudFocus. CloudForce, where 2 years ago, I think at CloudForce, he got up and spoke.
Yeah, that was like 2 or 3
years ago. Okay, The Big Switch by Nicholas Carr. It's a great book, and it really outlines what you were talking about in your blog about how people, how the innovation happens more in like centuries than decades, but talks about how these huge shifts are happening and how they're happening faster and faster.
I use his analogy a lot when people ask me about cloud computing of having to generate your own power to create widgets versus plugging into the electricity grid, and my girlfriend always gets upset because she's like, why can't you explain cloud computing without going back 150 years?
Wow.
Yeah.
No, it's a great, because the difference between having something that you had to do yourself, build your own apps, versus plugging in and grabbing CRM or Force.com, whatever you want. All right. That's the end of the podcast. I'm calling it. blog.arkusinc.com is where you would see these podcasts and our blog posts. At Arkus Inc., twitter.com/ArkusInc.com, or ArkusInc, not .com, you will get our main sort of company Twitter account. I'm at twitter.com/Jason M. Atwood. Justin here is at twitter.com/Just Edelstein. We're at facebook.com/Arkus Inc. Another way if you want to like us there. They actually did some big updates to their Facebook pages now, so it makes it a little bit more interactive. Check that out. And then, as always, go to iTunes until there's the Google competitor, and then we'll be there too. And go to iTunes. And
Are we in the Zune Marketplace?
I think we are in the Zune Marketplace.
To go there too?
There, lots of Zune players out there. Go to iTunes and subscribe. Subscribe to the podcast, and whenever we put it out, it'll come right down to your...
Leave us a review, would you?
Yeah, and leave us a review. It'd be great. Love to hear it. All right, so that's wrapping up, and until next week, and as always, enjoy those cloudy days.